I'm Motsoka, the founder of Simply Motsoka Business. In 2020, I saw a neurologist struggling to build a practice, and that inspired me to create a solution. Simply Motsoka is here to relieve medical professionals of the stress of running their businesses. My mission is to help the medical fraternity in Southern Africa build practices that are efficient, viable, and stress-free. At Simply Motsoka, we take care of the business so you can focus on saving lives.
My name is Dr. L.M.S Masooane Tladi. I'm a general practitioner based here in the Val Triangle, Vanderbilt Park, CBD. I'm fortunately born and bred here, so I'm proud to say I'm serving the community where I was
that's great,
raised.
Yeah. So I would like you to tell me, when did you start your medical practice, and tell me what was your journey like?
Yeah. So as we all know, we don't, or most of us don't go from school to starting a general practice. It's always wise to be in after your internship. You know, from after qualifying from medical school, we do what we call internship, which is a 2-year program.
Okay.
Fortunately, we already earn money at that time.
Wow,
so straight from completing your
studies.
The studies.
Okay.
We go into internship for 2 years, but we are already called doctors and we already earn a salary at that stage. After that, we go into what we call community service, and all these are hospital based. So you cannot be independent without finishing the 2 steps.
Okay. And how long does it take?
The community service is 1 year.
All right. And what inspired you to move from there to now start your own business and have your own medical practice?
I stayed after my community service. I actually stayed with the government for 12 and a half years.
Oh my word, you don't look the age.
The first love has always been a GP. Like this man pointed it out, and I don't think he instilled it in me. I never knew about the specialities in medicine, until I got into the hospital sector. And my first love became now obstetrics and gynae, so the pregnant ones. But this thing, GP. So I thought, okay, before I go into obstetrics and gynae, let me try and be independent on myself. And then, of course, being in the government sector also depends on which hospital you work, because they've got different levels. Because when you are an independent general practitioner, you are on your own. So basically, I can convince myself that I'm right about everything. And this is why the Health Professional Council is making sure that we stay in par and we keep reading about things. So they have what we call CPD points, CPD presentations from different, the profs, whoever, different sectors or different disciplines give us that. So, but for myself, I thought to stay in line with my EBS and gynae, and to also not to lose a lot of knowledge and skill as far as that is concerned. Then I said, okay, I will still continue serving the government sector, and I will do my sessional work with the government. So I switched things around. So now I'm full-time in practice, in private practice, which is at my practice, and then in after hours I serve the government by looking after their maternity patients for them, obstetrics and gynae. Tell
me, when it comes to your practice in-house now, how are you managing your staff? What is your structure like? When you started your practice, did you have somebody like me from a Simply Motsoka's point of view that came and helped you with your structure, your processes, or did you have to do all of that by yourself?
I was supposed to start 3 years after saving the hospital, after feeling I'm confident. But then it dragged to 12 years.
12 years,
So by the 9th year, I thought I had a plan in action. I wanted to do it, but I was still so scared because I didn't know. I didn't have a Motsoka to kind of guide me. So fortunately, and I still believe this was still God saying, you want to do this, you love it, go for it.
On our side, what we usually do, we'll help a doctor, help them with setting up. I mean, I just placed 2 employees at a gynae just 2 weeks ago as well, and which is doing great. But that is lovely. Now, when it comes to your claims, you touched on a point that I really want to talk about, which is one of the core services that we are offering. How are you administering your claims? And maybe tell me, when you started, did you do your claims in-house or were you outsourcing them? And why are you choosing the method that you're using? Yes.
So I'm not going to mention names, but
Yes.
I started with that particular company where we would do the claims in-house ourselves.
Okay.
And then mistakes happened because I was still a toddler learning
Yes.
in this journey. So sometimes you find that you don't put everything that you worked for, you don't claim, you don't know that you can even claim for certain things.
Especially time.
And then what happens, the costs and everything also grow as you also grow. And at some point you get a bit depressed about things. You know, every business is like that. You feel, but I'm not growing financially as I thought this would be. And mind you, you left a full-time salary to do this. And then again, my friend sat me down and said, no, but remember, you can do this. Help me to see how medical aids work. Yeah. And then I got people from that particular claims company to come and in service my receptionist at the time. So she learned how to do these things. And then as time went, again, we thought, okay, but we're still missing something. And then another company approached, and then they showed, especially when it came to bills that were not settled by medical aid, and then I myself had to go after the patient. So it became
so you were calling the patients yourself.
It became a challenge because remember, I did not know better at that time. And then someone else approached us and said, but this is what we do. And we can help you. The fees were not that much different from the current one. We can help you. We can get your remittance advices, and we go after patients for you, and we literally, so that made more sense to me, because then at the end of a busy day, I didn't also have to find myself sitting at home in front of the laptop checking if my receptionist coped, because she was alone at the time. I only had one. Fortunately now we grew and I've got two, so I would have to sit down myself after work and also check step by step if because at the end of the day you see, but I saw so many patients, but this is how much is coming to me, something, and then you see, okay, there's mistakes here, we're still not billing right. So when this other company approached, it made sense to me.
What do you think is the most preferred average percentage that doctors would want to pay a service provider that's offering the service?
I would say, to be fair, nothing more than 4%.
Nothing more than 4%. Okay, and why do you say that?
I think that's fair, because you, as I say, it's challenging. Medical aids, you might find that they give you a sum of, this is what we pay for this option. But when the claims are put through, it's not what they put there and what you get at the end of the day are never the same thing. And I'm talking in general, because we work differently. Some colleagues dispense, some colleagues don't dispense. So I'll tell you why. You get people like myself who have had, I think because I'm female, I'm kind of advantaged, because a whole lot of young ladies would come and say, but we've been looking for a female general practitioner, for those reasons that as a female you would understand. I'm sure a whole lot of others would understand. Not to say males don't come, they also come, but a whole lot of females would come and approach, they want to see you. And then you find that, but they have medical aids that are, I would use the word unfair to us.
To the medical
But to them, it's fair, because they are. We understand they're also trying to reach out to people with certain brackets of salaries.
Yes.
And you find yourself thinking, but where must they go? They are our sisters, and I'll give you an example. Say as a general practitioner, your charging fees are 400 rands. And you get this medical aid that says, we want a GP who dispenses.
Okay.
So you are what they call, you are under their network. Their network GP. And they say, we want you to dispense. Your charge rate is 400 rand. And they come, they say, we only give you 290.
This is good, because even patients now, they are learning and understanding some of the challenges that medical doctors also face on their side, because you never know who could be listening. And I love how you've explained it into detail, because it was also very educational for me. I have a last question to wrap up the interview. I want to find out, how do you manage looking this good, managing the client, your staff and the challenges and the patients? How do you keep a balance?
I'm coming to your question, but I want to start by saying I work with a nurse. Her name is Sister Nomsa. So every time she sees my status on the weekends when I tell myself I'm relaxing, she would say, "Hey, doctor, you work hard, but you also play hard." As I said, it's grace. It's just grace, and I think medical school prepare us to a certain extent because we start doing what we call course. By the time we do our clinical years. So we start with theoretical years, and then when we get with the new curriculum from the third year, third year, they introduce us to clinical side of things. So this is where we learn that after class, you are on call.
Yes.
And the call ends the next morning.
In the morning, like
and
now.
The next day, they won't say there's no class. Timetable
you still
continues
go to class,
the same way as it does.
Sure,
and
that's
even up to date, that's the difference between us and the nurses. Because the nurses, they work like us. You get overnight or night shift workers, but Bona at 7 o'clock in the morning, they knock off.
Oh, yeah. Then you still have
work,
to continue your shift.
Yeah, and now I'm going to expose myself, but that's the reason I was also kind of late this morning for my patients, because on Mondays, those are the nights I do my obstetric calls for the government.
Okay.
So I would have started 9 o'clock here, I knock off at 4, and then I have to go to the hospital until 8 o'clock. So
oh my gosh, so you didn't sleep?
So you don't sleep. We don't call it sleep, we call it elevation. So
wow.
If you don't get to elevate when there's no patient, because you can sleep. Anybody can rock in at 12. You've got a cesarean section, you've got somebody in labor at this time. So it's Sasolburg because it's a primary hospital, the ones that I told you I served for about 12 and a half years before I started here.
Yeah.
So when I'm on call there, I also serve Paris.
Oh my
community.
Gosh.
So people from Paris also comes in. So you get called like last night, 11 o'clock. Dr. Paris, the doctor from Paris would say, "Doc, I've got such and such," and you know this is a theater case. You decide, okay, doc, send the patient over. So you are waiting for this patient that you don't know. If they've got ambulance challenges, you wait anything from 1 hour to up to 3 hours. You can wait. So you can't do anything. You can't move.
Yeah,
you
can't
have to
wait,
like say I'm going. You wait, but in between there's walk-ins in the wards and you know and other season stuff. So you come here. If you are lucky on a quiet night, you get to elevate, but you can't sleep because you are on duty. At night.
The adrenaline and all.
So 8 o'clock in the morning, I go home. I refresh and I have to be here.
Wow.
So the mind, it's not an everyday thing, but your brain gets used to it. So I guess that's what helps me keep in shape because
I know
you're
literally
running.
In a nutshell, in closure, what do you think for a new doctor that is still starting? Do you think they could use services of a Simply Motsoka in order to assist them to start up their own practice?
I want to say to anybody who wants to start this practice, God does not stop working.
Yes.
You know, maybe I've been looking like for this all the time, and today God said, no, I'm going to put you, I'm going to market you. Maybe this is a big turnaround for me because as doctors, nobody ever, I think I'm my own advertisement because if you come in as a patient and I'm groggy, I'm post-call, and you come here and you meet the doctor who's still in the scraps from yesterday, who's like irritable because they are sleepy, and you won't.